Hey everybody, welcome to a new Amazing Max Stuff video. And you know what, I was looking at this Apparat video, this one, from the song That One. It's a recent video of Apparat. And it looks really like it was made in Max somehow. I mean, to me it screams jitter, it screams Max. So I thought, why don't we just, why let's not try just to recreate it? Recreate at least some part of it, of course probably not all of it, but actually just recreate the effects used in the video. So basically the single sequences, let's say. So I thought, let's give it a try. So in this video here, the first one, I don't know if this is going to be a series or just this video, I don't know, but in this video we are going to see how to create this part. So this shape, which is kind of shiny, it's kind of resplendent, and when I saw this shape I suddenly thought about my volumetric light scattering shader, which I transpose into Max. So I thought this totally looks like it. So let's actually start to recreate this patch, so these visuals, by starting from the volumetric light scattering patch. So let's go grab it. We can find it on my website, so federicofoderaro.com. We go into Amazing Max Stuff, patches and externals, free patches, and is this patch here. So we click on the link, on the name, basically you go into my Patreon, and this is you can download the patch for free. So I will just download Godrays Shader Post JXS and Godrays GPU Max Path. So let's create a new folder. Let's call it Apparat Remake Tut, and I will just paste this stuff inside here. So let's open the patch which we just downloaded, and that's it. When you open, you should see this window with the volumetric light scattering effect going on. Okay, so we will use this patch as a starting point. So let's start to delete all the stuff we don't need. For example, animation, and in camera, let's actually delete the position. Let's make the speed actually 20. Okay, so we're now able to move around with the W, A, S, D, Q, and Z keys, as always with the JIT anim. Okay, then let's actually get rid also of the sub patch object and floor. Okay, so this is what we want to be actually. Let's delete this receiver here. Let's move maybe these messages here. This we can delete. Let's actually delete also the preset. And okay, so cool, this is what we want to have right now. Let's go inside the lights, and we want to delete what we want to delete. Yeah, basically we want to delete this light here. Then we want to delete, let me see, let's actually encapsulate here the real light, but the GGL light inside a sub patch, because we are going to work inside this sub patch, and then it can get quite crowded. So this I will call like real light, and this is like the sphere which simulates the light inside the patch. So for example, if we don't draw it, okay, yeah, nothing happens basically, but if we don't draw it at all, yeah, we have no light basically. So this is the sphere that we use to generate the light scattering algorithm. If you're curious about the algorithm, is inside this GGL slab. It's actually surprisingly extremely simple, but to explain it, it's not the scope of this video. In this video we're just going to see how to use this algorithm to recreate the Apparat patch. So let's keep actually the Apparat patch as a reference here. The Apparat visuals, I mean, of course. Let's delete the erase color here, we don't need. Let's delete also that one. Let's actually delete also this. So outside of this GGL node here, we get only the light. Okay, so this makes sense. In this other GGL node, we actually want to get the... Let me actually recreate that. Okay. So in this other GGL node, we actually want to set a color for the background. So let's create a color for the background like this. Okay, so this should be kind of the same color as we have here. Okay, this is a bit darker, but yeah, it's darker because basically we can, if we reduce the, if we play a bit around with these parameters here, we should be fine. Okay, yeah. So this is basically what we want to have. Okay, so let's create a new subpatch and let's call it texture lights. So in this subpatch we are going to create some texture which will apply to this sphere here, which is basically our this sphere that you see here, which is basically our let's say the light that basically generates this the light scattering. So this is basically our source of light. We will apply some textures to this shape in order to get the same visuals as in here. So okay, let's go inside now let's go inside texture lights and let's create a GitGL BFG object, and let's assign it to node raise 1, because basically in this patch we are rendering every object. I mean, now there is only the light, but we are rendering all the objects that we want to include in the visuals. We have to render them 2 times. One using the bang from the first node, and the other time using the bang from the other node. We have to render the patch 2 times, because the first time we will render the light with a texture, and the second time we will render it with another texture. If you are curious about how actually the algorithm works, I linked the place where I got it. So it's from GPU Gems. I linked it in my Patreon, so you can just check it. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, so texture lights. Let's go here. We create a GGL BFG. Now let's create a GGL texture to get something out of this BFG. So node raise 1. And I made recently, the last tutorial that I made was also about GGL BFG, so if you're interested in the object itself, take a look at it. It's basically a GPU version of JIT BFG. So we have a bunch of Berlin noise stuff inside and different kind of noise. So let's give some dimensions to this texture. Let's create a metro. So the metro from this patch is called metro raise, the bang sender. So let's do like this, and then let's get like the basis attribute for this, the GGL BFG. Let's take the time, no, the zoom attribute. Basically, this is what we want. That's actually it. So if we create a GPU window now, we can see that we are outputting a noise. By default, is noise Berlin. So for example, we can use noise FPM, which is actually my favorite, I think. Okay, and then we can use this as a texture, so for our light. For example, let's create this as a texture, so this GGL texture, node raise 1, and then name text light 0. Let's attach it here. So let's now go inside the subpatch lights, and to this grid shape here, we will give this as a texture. So basically, let's actually delete this gate. We are not going to use it. We are always rendering these. So we rendered this 2 times, as you can see. The first time we read it in node raise 1, and the second time we render it in the other node. So node 1 and node 2. So basically, when we render it the first time, we want to give it the texture text light 0. So texture text light 0. Okay, so now the light is using the texture as a texture, basically. Let's actually set it as so apply as replace. So it's actually not going to be influenced by the color of. No, actually no. In this case, we want it as modulate, which is by default. Okay, so let's leave it like this, and this is almost okay. We are going to do a couple of things more. Here, yeah, everything is cool. yeah, let's modify a bit these values for the light scattering thing. Just want to get it a bit better, a bit more similar to the, okay, so something like that, a bit more similar to the Apparat visuals. Okay, so let's go inside texture lights again, and let's modify a bit this noise, because as you can see, or actually let's first try it like with noise purling. Yeah, as you can see in the Apparat video, this is this looks like that kind of, the light is kind of in kind of stripes, separated from each other. So this is what we want to achieve. So in order to do that, let's create a GGLPix object, node raise 1. We're going to work a bit on this texture. So basically, let's go back to noise FPM. Basically what we want to achieve is to create a bit more space between the different the stripes of light. So let's use actually a smooth step and do something like this. Before 0.3 will be 0, after 0.5 will be 1. So let's see what we get. Okay, let's actually make it a bit higher, so 0.5, 0.7, okay. So this now looks nice. This now looks a bit as we want it, probably. Let's also create the time variable to kind of get a different offset inside the noise. So, yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like this. Okay, so now we have the first texture, and this is how we are rendering the light. Let's create the second texture. So let's basically copy these. Let's basically copy the GPFG and the GGLPix. And we're going to connect the same texture also to this one. Okay. Do we actually need the GGLPFG? We could need it. We could need it. So let's go inside. Let's go inside here. The GGLPix object, and let's work on the texture. So, for example, let's create a texture that looks similar to something like. So let's see. Something like these triangles I would like to recreate. Something that looks like these triangles. So a texture made of triangles. Okay, so in order to do that, we can do like this. We can create a norm object, width x, width epsilon. Let's actually first multiply this by something like 20. And then make modulo 1. So we basically, what we get now is something that looks like this. So if we use the x and the epsilon for the red and the green, we got something that looks like this. Let's actually already apply this to the, also let's call this text like to 1, otherwise we get an error. So let's just apply this already to the shape. So let's go inside lights, and the second time it gets rendered, we want to apply the second texture. So texture text light 1. And there we go, there we go. We had the first texture and the second textures applied. The problem with this one, actually, in this one we want to say apply replace. So this means how the texture is going to get applied. By default it's multiplied by the color of the object, but we would say just replace the color of the object completely. And this is what we get. Now we want to get triangles, so let's back there into the texture subpatch, and let's say, for example, when x is greater than epsilon, output a 1, otherwise output a 0, and this is going to create triangles. So to explain why this works, let's actually create a little graph. So imagine that this is a matrix, it's not like a mathematical graph, okay? This is just our matrix. And so epsilon, for every cell, epsilon will always go toward For example, let's say that this arrives to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and so on. But x will increase. So in the beginning, x will not be greater than epsilon, but as soon as x starts to increase, then it's going to be greater than epsilon. And so we get this kind of triangle shape. Okay, so let's get back to the patch, and let's maybe attach this to the blue just to get a bit more interesting effect. Then we can really go crazy inside the texture. We can actually, for example, like multiply norm. No, we can add norm, for example, to the noise. Maybe after multiplying it for a smaller value, just to get this a bit not so regular. So we're gonna do something like this. Let's maybe make it a bit bigger. Yeah, and then we get this kind of effect. Let's see, we can, yeah, something like this. We can really go crazy in creating our texture. Yes. Okay, so we have our texture that could be also one from the visuals of Apparat somehow. So now the only thing we need to add still is this kind of blurriness. Everything is kind of blurriness and leaves kind of a trail. Now, since we are using node, we cannot use just the alpha of JIT world. We have to use another method. So we will use a JIT slab object. So node raise 1, and we will use let's say node raise 2, and we will use one of the built-in shaders from Max. So file tp.slide.jxs, which basically accomplishes what we are looking for. We just have to create a texture to create the feedback effect. So node raise 2, connect it here and connect it to the second input, and this should work. We just need to give it the parameters. So param slide up $1, because inside this shader, as you can see, there are a couple of parameters: slide up and slide down. So slide up and slide down. Okay, let's make them a bit bigger. Okay, now you can see that we are leaving the trails. Let's make it a bit smaller. 30 and 30, for example. And okay, I think we got. Let's actually modify a bit these values to get it a bit more. Okay. So I think we are getting there. We're kind of getting to the. We are kind of getting to the Apparat feeling. Let's make it a bit more bluish and less reddish. So by changing this to bluish. So let's add a load bang here. Okay. So yeah, this is basically what I wanted to, where I wanted to arrive here. So from this point, we can basically say that the first thing is kind of achieved. Would you agree with that? You can also choose different noises for the first texture in order to have different effects. So exactly. So we can get pretty close to the Apparat version, I will say. Let's actually put this in the center, because by default is position 0, 1, 0. So let's put this in the center. Real light. Position 0. The camera, I think it's looking at 0, 1, 0, so let's actually tell it to look at 0. Okay, cool, now we are. There we are. So, a brief addition to the patch. Basically, when I recorded this video, I was really tired, so I missed something. Basically, what it's also nice to do is to multiply the color of the texture, so of the triangle texture, for the light tester. In this way, when the light is 0, we just have black, and it doesn't. The color of the light doesn't add to the color of the texture, which is then kind of better. Okay, so yeah, that's everything I wanted to add. Okay, so we kind of got there. this is where I wanted to arrive, what I wanted to show you. And I think there will be some other videos in which we are going to track down a bit some other effects like this nice one with the squares, and create some shapes, some stuff like this. This will be interesting to achieve. Thank you for following. I hope this made some kind of sense. And anyway, you can download the patch for free from my Patreon. And of course, you can decide to support me. If you like the video, you can also put a like on this video, just to show me that you like the video. And well, yeah, that's it. I will see you in the next video. Ciao, guys.